then that note, then that note. Hey everyone, welcome to MT Guitar. I'm Mitch, and today I want to show you the 4 steps to play the blues and why every guitarist should play the blues. This is a lesson you're not going to want to miss. It's very, very essential stuff here that I think is some of the most important aspects of a guitar education, a guitar foundation, is knowing the blues. There's many, many historical reasons for that I'm going to sort of cover as we go. I'm going to give you some assignments to do, some things to do while you're practicing, some artists to listen to, and some techniques to try out, and some fun things to do as well. This is often where the guitar face comes in. People make, that face helps you get some of these articulations with phrasing and improvising. All right, so let's start with number 1, and I think you'll see the power of this as we go. First, we want to learn the 12-bar blues form, and there's a couple reasons for that. This is a form that is somewhat universal, kind of an agreed upon form around the world. There's blues jams going on in every continent that's populated, and at these blues jams you're going to see the 12-bar blues form. This is very unique to the blues. It is the most agreed upon form around the world, and if people just know the 12-bar blues in the same key, they can make music together. It's a beautiful thing. And it's some of my first musical experiences playing with other people happen to be over the 12-bar blues form. We don't have to do anything fancy. That's the other great thing. These are easy chords to play. All right, we're going to get to that later. I'm going to teach you this in a bit. When we have a blues song, it's drawing from the 12-bar blues in different keys. Plenty of blues guitarists who still draw from this form. So it's also a songwriting vehicle as well as a jam vehicle. It's also a great ear training tool. If you can learn the 12-bar blues, you can start to recognize the 1, 4, and 5 chords very easily, as opposed to more sort of mundane or dry ear training exercises. With the blues, it's fun, and you can learn what the 1, 4, and 5 chords sound like, what a turnaround sounds like, and much, much more. Number 2, the second step to learn to play the blues would be to learn the minor pentatonic and minor blues scales. All right, and those are just to start, and there's plenty to go from there. So let me just show you some minor pentatonic scales. You have E. This will be on the study guide at patreon.com/mtguitar. Okay, you have A. These are minor pentatonic scales. You have 5 positions of each. I'll spare you that, but it will be all written out, and you're going to want to start with position 1 and just try to sound good. Then you can add the blues note right there and there. Okay? As my first teacher told me, you could never practice the minor pentatonic too much. 25 years later, it still rings true, and I see what he means more every day, okay, in a sense. So, what's the deal? Why is everyone loving these scales? Well, they're the main melodic vehicles for blues melodies. In order to talk about this, we sort of probably want to talk a little bit about the blues and the history of it. So the blues began really gaining steam in the early 20th century, right? Early 1900s. But we know from ethnomusicology that it was really brewing in the late 1800s, as early as the 1860s. Highly recommend the book Delta Blues by Ted Gioia, who is a terrific author, not only with blues, but with jazz. He's been interviewed by Rick Beato a few times. Really, the blues began, in the Mississippi Delta. And this is the rural South. And so we have the term country blues. Singers like Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith start to capitalize on the popularity of the blues as it began to be discovered and picking up steam, so to speak. And then you had this idea of classic blues. These vocalists, often incredible female vocalists, were singing the blues around the country, sharing it to the Northeast, etc. And you had blues written down by people like Jelly Roll Morton and W.C. Handy. Songs like the Memphis Blues, St. Louis Blues, Bo Weevil Blues, Moonshine Blues, many, many others. And this is in largely the 10s and 20s where they're being written and recorded in the 20s. And this is classic blues. So you've got country blues, which is sort of the birth of blues, and you've got classic blues, which is sort of the recorded version with orchestrations and with production. Now, all of these songs and singers heavily use the minor pentatonic and blues scales in their singing and in their guitar playing, okay? So what's going on with the guitar? Well, Banjo was all the rage in the early 1900s because it was able to compete with brass bands, which almost every town had a brass band, and with orchestras as well, with whether it be, a marching band or whatnot. And guitars were getting drowned out. Well, guitar worked well, and still does, as a solo instrument. So you'd have African-American people and musicians playing the blues with a guitar. It became a solitary art form, just with one person, often unaccompanied. So you'd have these bars, basically, juke joints, whatever, having blues musicians, the most famous probably being Robert Johnson. But even before that, you have in Clarksdale and Memphis a big blues scene where you'd have one person playing the blues, okay? And they're singing minor pentatonic scales. And they're also playing on the guitar. They're playing the 12-bar blues or variants of that. And then they're doing call and response. So a big part of blues is call and response. So they sing a melody. And then respond to it. Whoa, yeah. Whoa. Oh. Okay. Now, in a sense, I'm singing the same scale that I'm playing, singing a minor pentatonic scale. Probably not very well, because I'm just sort of going off the cuff here. No lyrics, just sort of giving you an idea of the sound of it. But there's a call and response, and that was very important to early blues. You also have bottleneck slide, right? So it's either fretted, or you'd have literally the bottleneck of a wine glass or something. Okay, so what's going on with all that? Why are people even doing that? Well, this sounds like the voice. The guitar is trying to sound like the voice. So we have the birth of the guitar solo. The modern guitar solo, which is thanks to the blues in large part, a guitar solo in the modern sense of what a solo is, it's coming from a lot of this blues tradition. The guitar trying to sound like the voice. And so you have this solitary musician where there's only one person, and so you have two melody makers, the guitar and the voice. And this is how we should think about early guitar soloing. It was, in terms of blues, a way to sound like the voice. So we're going to get into that with other elements here. We have the bluesy sound coming from these scales, and it was over a dominant chord, and this creates a sort of tension, which is very, very important for the African American sound of the blues. It's meant to sound a bit tense. It doesn't neatly fit into the E7 chord, which would maybe suggest more of like a Mixolydian scale or some sort of major scale. Well, this is a minor scale, and that's inherently tense, and that's part of the mystique and magic of the blues, is that it's not really supposed to work, so to speak, according to theoreticians, at least old theoreticians who wouldn't even imagine the blues as possible. It's a whole new sound with sort of these ancient scales, minor pentatonic going way back around the world, Asia and Africa, heavy use of minor and major pentatonic scales in folk melodies. And then you have these European style chords, like dominant chords with 4 notes in them, definitely more of a Western thing. So you have a blend of Western and ancient sounds and rhythms. All right. Last thing I'll say before we go to number 3 is the guitar became its own melody maker, not just imitating the voice necessarily. And we have the sort of the blues revival in the 60s. And this is when the British invasion began after the Beatlemania started and sort of opened the doors for the Brits. And you had these bands like the Rolling Stones and the Yardbirds, most specifically, that idolized both the country blues of the Mississippi and the Chicago blues. B.B. King, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, etc. Many of the Southern blues artists move up to Chicago for more opportunity and less segregation and so on. So you'd have this Chicago sound that was plugged in. And now we have the real birth of the full band backing the blues. Okay, now the blues is starting to take shape in the modern form that we know it today. So the Yardbirds had Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page. And not in that order. It was Clapton, Page, Beck. And those 3 guitarists went on to really, play blues-style guitar for the rest of their lives. Obviously, Clapton's still alive, and Page is still alive. But and Beck sadly passed recently, but all three of these guitarists for their whole career, highly, highly influenced by the blues and by the minor pentatonic scales. So what you'd want to do is you'd want to learn the minor pentatonic in E minor and A minor, up and down the neck. Just devour the fretboard. I have a lesson coming up on the Patreon that will be sharing all of that, and you can join at the $5 a month level for the study guide on this blues. But it's readily available all across the internet as well. So if you want to just learn the minor pentatonic scales, go to town on them. Like I said, you can never practice it too much. All right, I think we're ready for number 3. You've got to learn to shuffle. You've got to learn to shuffle. If I just simply play E7 and then a pentatonic scale and hope that I'm playing the blues, obviously we know maybe there's something missing there. I can't just hope the blues will come out of this guitar just with a chord. Okay, we have to make it move. We have to create rhythm and groove. It's so essential for the blues. And so we're going to break this down. I'm going to give you some assignments here. We're going to learn the 12-bar blues, and then we're going to shuffle it all in one. All right? What is a shuffle? A shuffle is another word for a swing. Okay? There's different types of shuffle and swing. Swing is more associated with jazz, and shuffle is more associated with blues. But they're essentially almost identical. It's just a degree of style and whatnot. So what's happening is you have a 12/8 form, also very important in African music traditions and Caribbean traditions, Latin traditions, etc. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so it's 4 beats of a triplet. 1, 2, 3. Now if I emphasize the first and third beats of those, I get this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 2. Okay? So, now I've got a shuffle. Very different from straight, which would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to learn 12-bar blues in E and A, and we have one more essential step to cover. Actually, there might be 5, but I think there's 4. I mentioned in the title, and then I'll give you a bonus. So the shuffle was going to be inherent in this blues throughout the whole form. We have an E7, and we're just going to start with that for a bar. Then we go to A7, then back to E7. This is the first 4-bar phrase. So that's E7, A7, E7 for 2 bars. Okay. Back to E7, 3, 2, 3, and 4, and 4, 2. Now A7 for 2 bars. This is the second 4-bar phrase. You got to memorize this. Back to E7 for 2 bars. So A7 for 2 bars, E7 for 2 bars. Now the turnaround, E7 for a bar, A7 for a bar, E7 for a bar, B7 for a bar. Now we're going to do a boogie woogie pattern, a power chord going from 2 to 4 on every chord. So that's 6th and 5th strings, power chord. 2 and 4 to 2 to 4. Palm muting all down strums. If the B7 is too much of a reach, just forget about it and play the power chord only. Okay, now the other way to do the 12-bar blues is simply 4 bars of E7 all at once. So we'll do that with the chug-a-lug here, the boogie woogie pattern. 2, 3, 4, E7. 2, 3, 4. Okay, now A7. There was a piano sort of idea that caught on the guitar. Robert Johnson did this a lot as well. Charlie Patton. Then you can throw in minor pentatonic without losing the form. Now we're cooking. Little turnaround ideas like that are fun. That's the 12/8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, ba ba da ba ba da. I'm playing the 12-bar blues sort of in a fancy way. You don't need to. You can just do it nice and simple. The blues was very important in terms of groove and rhythm. People were dancing to this music, and the blues makes you feel good. It kind of takes you out of being blue, so to speak. It's supposed to be uplifting. It's supposed to be infectious, and surely that's something worth working on. So that's a lifelong pursuit. Number 4, and I'll give you a bonus, number 5. Number 4 would be learn the phrasings, articulations, and techniques. So this is something that it's not enough just to play the notes of a minor pentatonic. Which is a good start. There's E, here's A. We add the blues note, 6th fret. That's not enough. We have to add bends, slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and vibratos. All right, and so if I take this E blues scale, even just a little bend goes a long way. Every note of this, besides this one and this one, 2nd fret, 5th and 4th string, every other note can be bent. Same thing with the A minor pentatonic. Don't bend the 5th fret, the 7th fret, 5th and 4th strings, unless you're on electric and you can bend either a step or a step and a half. You can't on acoustics, that's fine, so just ignore those. You can bend that note. Bend that note. We can bend that note. Okay, here's what I'm going to give you some people to listen to. We want to make the guitar sing. We want to make it cry and sing, as Mark Knopfler put it. So what we need to do is we need to listen to players. All right, B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Eric Clapton, Eric Gales, David Gilmour, Jimi Hendrix, Gary Clark Jr., Josh Smith, Joe Bonamassa, Albert King, Freddie King, Johnny Winter, John Lee Hooker, Howlin' Wolf, Rory Gallagher, Robin Ford, Albert Collins, Lightning Hopkins, Dwayne Allman, John Mayer, many, many others, okay? Many, many others. And I'm sure there's millions I'm forgetting. But these guitarists are masters of bending and all these articulations, hammer-ons, pull-offs, okay? I've seen quite a few of these guitarists. I've seen B.B. King, Buddy Guy, Eric Clapton, David Gilmour. This is often where the guitar face comes in. People make, that face helps you get some of these articulations. So this is a pull-off here. You want to work on that. Hammer on, vibrato, slide. Bend, vibrato, slide, pull off, hammer on, vibrato. So you'd want to work on the minor pentatonic and work on your articulations and phrasings and techniques. The bonus one would be learn the blues in several keys and improvise and create music you like, meaning the blues is an individual art form. It's not something where you have to necessarily try to sound like somebody else. The blues is meant to be a vehicle for you to sound like yourself. That's different. A lot of times, with many styles, we're not trying to be super individualistic necessarily. Maybe we're just, just trying to fit with the band and whatnot. Whereas blues, you're supposed to have a personality. You're supposed to make it sound somewhat uniquely you. And this is something where you can really just go into, okay, how do I make this scale sound something I like? It might be different than me. Well, it will be by definition. It has to be. You can learn solos note for note. That's a great technique to learn how to sound like other people. And then you want to take this scale, improvise. Every blues guitarist improvises to get better. And then you'll play over backing tracks, maybe loop the blues, maybe play along with blues recordings and many keys. Memorize the form, memorize the scales, all up and down the neck, and try to create music you like. All right, so we've got the 12-bar blues form, we've got the minor pentatonic scale and the blues scales. we've got the shuffle, we've got the phrasings, articulations, and techniques, and then we've got improvising. And those 5 things should cover it. I'm going to put a full study guide of this on the Patreon. Remember to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I hope you have a great day. Talk to you later, everyone. Thanks. Bye. So let me just show you some minor pentatonic scales. You have E. This will be on the study guide at patreon.com/mtguitar. Okay. You have A. These are minor pentatonic scales. You have 5 positions of each. I'll spare you that, but it will be all written out. And you're going to want to start with position 1 and just try to sound good. Then you can add the blues note right there and there. Okay?